Hi, welcome to some Christmas ideas with GourmetQuilter. I'm Susan Clare, GourmetQuilter. We're doing 20 different ideas in 20 days, so one each day for 20 days. We are up to day 8, so Christmas idea number 8. There's a pattern in case you're interested through gourmetquilter.com, and you'll get all the shapes and things and information you need to make each project each day. So what we're making today is just a little hanging stocking. We've got a few hanging up behind me here, but these are kind of fun because they've got a little closure on them. They've got that little snap fastener so that you could stick something really exciting like a pair of scissors in there. And what a nice little Christmas gift would that be? Maybe some slightly smaller handled scissors would be quite good. Or you could just have, chocolate maybe chocolate in there. You could applique a star on them if you wanted to, or something else. Or you might just have some fun fabrics and you don't think they need any applique. So there's lots of little things going on there. I thought they'd make a great advent calendar. You could put a little parcel in each one, or just a little gift, or just a chocolate, you know. So we'll get started with what we're going to do. So the pattern does tell you all this sort of thing that you need to know. There's a pattern shape that comes in, and we need to have this sort of cut out because this is the line that we're going to need to draw around, and I found it quite helpful to take the star out as well for helping to position the star if you're going to do the applique. Other than that, we need a couple of squares of fabric, a couple of squares of batting, and a couple of rectangles of the lining fabric. So the lining fabric forms this top of the stocking there, so that's all inside there as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll just start off initially by doing a little bit of ironing things together. So I've got my two lining rectangles, one for each side, front and back, and have them wrong side up, and then we're going to have, then we can place our batting on just down to the lower edge on both of those. And then we want our coloured main fabric, and they're going to be bright green, these ones by the looks of things, sitting on top. Now I have got a very lightly fusible batting, but it doesn't need to be, but I would suggest definitely a thin batting because we're going to be turning these out when we've sewn them together, and the thinner it is the easier it is, but it's quite nice to have something in there. So I've got my pieces ready there, but there's still a little bit more pressing to do. So what we want to do with this top piece here, so everything's lined up with these raw edges around the three sides, just this longer one, we want to fold this piece in so that it meets there, and we can iron it, and then we're going to fold it, press it right over, so again right over the edge of the fabric there, and press that down, and we want to do the same on both bits. So if you were going to be making quite a few of these, like if you did want to do an advent calendar, or you've got lots of friends, or you want a tree with lots and lots of stockings on it, you can chain piece some of this part through so that kind of gets things going a little bit quicker, or you might just be making one, in which case you can just do one. So I've gone. So I'm going to go ahead now and just stitch. So what we're doing is 2 lines of stitching fairly close to the 2 folded edges, because this is going to be the casing for a little snappy bit. So as I said, this is the part that you could do, and you could have a whole lot of them ready to just sort of feed through. So I'll get this other side through at the same time now. And then we want to do the same with the top folded edge as well. Beautiful. Looks like they're nearly made already, but no, not quite. Now would be a good time to position if you're going to do the applique on them, and so we'll do the applique. So I've just got some fusible web on the back of my stars that I've already cut out. So we want to put this little template on, and we want to make sure that there's a little bit of gap these are the 2 points where it's going to, because we want this edge to be level with the top of the template. We want a little bit of a gap either side, and then we can just get a rough idea. It doesn't have to be in that exact position, but it's more making sure that it's in the right place rather than in the right direction. And then this one, turn the template over, again line that top edge up, make sure there's a little bit of a gap on those 2 areas where it's fairly tight. Doesn't need to be very much of a gap. And put your other star in place there. And so I can iron those in place now and get them appliqued. So we need to do the applique before we can join up the shapes. So I'm just going to do a regular straight stitch applique. It's all straight lines, but I'm on the applique but just with a straight stitch. But you could do something else if you prefer to do a blanket stitch, or you could free motion them. There's so many things in life you can do. I think these are so cute. It'd be so nice to have them as little gifts for people at a little gathering. Oh, and did I mention they look really nice with chocolate in them too? So you can see this doesn't take too long to just put a little star on something. And we're back at the beginning. So it's that simple. I'll go ahead now and get the second one done, and then I'll show you how we go forward from there. So I've gone ahead, I've finished off the 2 little appliques now. So now we need to start making the little stocking shape. So we're going to place them, well, they can go right sides together, or you can just work on one. So when we did the star, they look like they're in a very similar position, but they're actually ever so slightly off center. So if you can remember which one you've put onto which, we want to turn this one over, because I know that this one was going this way with the toe pointing that way. So if we turn that one over, the toe will be pointing now that way, because it's the back of it. Even I can work that much out. And we just again want to position that on, and we just need a pencil or some sort of marking tool. Again, you just want to make sure that there is a gap here. We're going to draw around this template now, pretty close to the edge of it, because that's going to actually be a stitching line. Now, yes, I know we've only got a very small amount here and here, but we only need a very small amount. And if we make this little stocking too small or narrow, you wouldn't be able to do that nice little fancy fitting that we're going to put in it very shortly, to give it the little snap closure. So there, I've just drawn my line. We're not going to see that line, so it doesn't really matter what you use. And we're going to place it right sides together now with the other one. And we want to stitch. Now it doesn't matter which one you've drawn, one or the other. We want to stitch around, probably starting at this end and stopping over here. So we want to be able to leave it open at that top there. So I'm just going to start up here, and we're going to be stitching on the line that we've just drawn. And I'm just going to start in, just rather than start right at the very edge, just come in only maybe 1/4 inch or so. I like to just back over that and then start sewing down, and that's so that I don't get little thread ends right at the end of my seam, so I can trim those off afterwards. So now I'm just going to come around right on that seam line. So that might mean I've got to pivot a little bit now and then, and we're coming quite close to the edge here, but that's all okay because we're going to be trimming our seam right down when we get around. And then we're going to come up this little back section here, but we're not going to finish the seam off just yet. So probably about where it starts curving out is fine. Do a little back stitch so that we've got this bit open here. So what we're going to do now is get the little snap fastener ready. Now to do the snap fastener, nothing terribly hard about it. We're going to cut up maybe an old tape measure, maybe a new tape measure, a metal tape measure, one of these ones that comes in and out. Once you've snipped that little end off, they always have that little end on them. Just remember to lock it, because if you let that go, the end of the tape will just roll up inside and then you won't be able to get at it. Not helpful, I know. So what we need to do that is a metal tape measure, some old scissors, not your good sewing scissors, some workshop scissors and something old that won't matter because we're cutting metal with it. And some masking tape of some sort. This is a really wide one, just a narrow one is fine. I didn't have a narrow one on hand. So it's really quite simple. We just need to know the measurement that we want to cut of the length, and then we're going to cut that, as I said, use some older scissors, and you can actually just cut straight through. The only other thing you do need to do, and this is where you need to have perhaps an area where you're not going to walk, kneel, sit, or have anyone else do any of those things, because we need to just round these corners and sometimes they fly off. So maybe straight into a rubbish bag bin or somewhere where nobody is going to get them because they're quite sharp. So all I'm going to do is just round that corner off, I hope. It's going to do it. So it's a little bit tricky. So my bit went flying, I heard it go somewhere. So we just want a rounded corner. We don't want sharp points because the sharp points are going to wear through on the fabric really fast. So if you can just round that corner, and then we get a little piece of our masking tape. I've already done the ones I'm doing, but I'll just quickly show you if I can get this tape to cut. These scissors are not happy cutting some of these things. They are my workshop type scissors. So once I've rounded both corners, I'm just going to pop a little bit of masking tape, and it won't matter if it's wider like this one is or it's hugely long as well, probably not as much as this. And then we can just trim that level with the tape measure. We don't want it to be any wider than the tape measure is, but trimming it up level like that. So I've already got some pieces here that I've prepared ahead so that I can use them, but that's how we do it. So we cut our length, and we need two pieces, one for each side of the casing, two pieces that have been wrapped, trimmed, corners trimmed and wrapped so that it sits as best it can in the fabric. And then what we want to do is pop these inside that casing that we made here, this white bit here. So behind there should be a double layer of that because we folded it over. So against the coloured fabric with that rounded bit facing to the right side. And push that in. Push it all the way in for the moment. It's going to be seem like it's quite short in there. That's because it is. And we put the other one in too, also with that curve facing the curved part to the front of the actual stocking. And push that one right in for the moment. And now we can come back and finish this little seam off that we've got going here, because they're well out of the way of anything that we're going to sew. This is a fun little snappy thing. I've done other little snap bags and sunny cases and all sorts of things, and it's great in a little stocking as well. So come up here and again do your little back stitch a little bit beyond so that it's so that you haven't got ends right on the end that we're going to stick out. They're just in a little bit, so you can trim them off quite comfortably. And now we need to cut this this out. So we've got all sorts of bits sticking in our way here, but we're going to be trimming it because you can see we're only quite close on those points there. We're going to be trimming it quite close, maybe 1/8 of an inch away. All the way around. So some nice sharp scissors are really helpful for this sort of thing. So that's pretty good. The other thing I like to do, just a little tiny thing, is just snip those tiny little corners off, because we just don't want them sticking up, and sometimes they do. And then before we turn it out the right way, I found it was easiest if I stitch a length of ribbon or cord or whatever it is that you're going to do if you're wanting it to hang. You may not, you might just want a little stocking snappy bag, and that's fine. I want mine to hang. So I'm just going to stitch this just on this little corner up here, and it's just a holding stitch. It doesn't need to be anything amazing. It's going to be inside, but if it's in position now, it's easier when we come to do the next bit. So that's looking pretty good. So now we've got the fun and games of turning it out the right way, and it's a little bit tricky because we've got these bits of metal in here, but they're quite bendable. You can click them. Don't panic about them, they will turn through. So we want to turn all that through now. See, look, popped out beautifully. And then we just want to run a finger or something around that seam so that all those curves sit nicely, because it's just a narrow little seam allowance that we left. That should actually all sit really nicely. And then if you want to, you could give it a little press, but it's looking pretty good. Make sure that everything's sitting out well there. That's so cute. So now what we've got is these little metal bits in here which are going to help hold it closed, but we've got to do another round of stitching yet. So we're just top stitching all the way around the edge. So we just need to make sure that the metal is out of our way when we do that. So I probably push it across when I get started. I'm going to start at the back here, so I'm going to pull this ribbon up. We want that seam at the back. We want to pull the ribbon up so that it will hang like that. And I'm just stitching probably 1/8 of an inch in, maybe ever so slightly more, but not as much as 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to start stitching again, just down from the top, because then I can snip those ends off. So I'm just going to come and follow all the way around. As I said, about 1/8 of an inch in. I might need to pivot occasionally just to get that curve going smoothly. Such a cute little stocking. I wonder if I hang up my stocking, if somebody will fill them up for me. Now I'm just going, before I get up to here, I'm going to make sure those bits of metal are pushed back towards this end so that they're out of the way for sewing here, and make sure that our seam there is sitting nicely to the front, and we can just keep on coming around. Right up to the top, and then back stitch down a little bit. Perfect. Look at that. Snip off our little thread ends. And we have now, so they are shorter than the distance, but because we've got different angles and things, but you'll find that that still works for you as a little snap closure. And I just think that that's the cutest little thing. Well, I hope you think it's cute, because it's probably more important that you think it's cute than that I think it's cute. With or without stars, fun fabrics, or just colours. And I'm tending to use mostly just colours, but you could just see how you could have a nice little advent calendar. You could do little Christmas parcels for people. You could have little goodies in a basket for people who might call in around that season and you want to give them a little treat. And the treat could, of course, be something that isn't chocolate. One never knows. There are other things in life. So that was Christmas idea number 8, a little snappy mini snap stocking. And I will see you again with Christmas idea number 9.